Tonight we witness a seismic shift in North American relations, a moment that will be remembered as a turning point in the history of two nations that once stood shoulder to shoulder. Former President Donald Trump has publicly pleaded with Canada for wheat, a desperate and unprecedented move that Ottawa, under the leadership of Prime Minister Mark Carney, has firmly and unequivocally rejected. The world watched as Trump's request was met not with negotiation, but with a resolute no. This isn't just a trade dispute. It's the collapse of a partnership that defined prosperity for generations. The once bustling ports and border crossings now stand eerily silent, a stark reminder of how quickly alliances can unravel. The US and Canada once shared a seamless economic bond, from auto parts to lumber, wheat to energy. Their industries were intertwined, their supply chains deeply connected. But that relationship is now fractured, and the ripple effects are being felt in every sector. Trump's plea is more than a political gesture. It's a symbol. America's closest ally has pivoted away, and the world is watching with a mix of shock and apprehension. The headlines are global, the implications profound. Canada's refusal is more than a denial of grain. It's a signal that supply chains are being rerouted, and American businesses can no longer count on Canadian resources. Supermarket shelves are growing bare, and the flow of essential goods has slowed to a trickle. This crisis is the result of years of eroding trust and unpredictable U.S. trade policies. Behind closed doors, diplomats scramble to salvage what they can, but the damage may be irreversible. In response, Canada has signed a sweeping trade agreement with China, prioritizing its resources for a new partner. This bold move signals a dramatic shift in global alliances, as Canada looks eastward for stability and growth. The implications are immediate and severe. Supply chains freeze, prices rise, and industries on both sides of the border face uncertainty. Families struggle to find basic goods, and workers fear for their jobs as factories shutter. The era of North American economic integration is over. The spirit of NAFTA, once a beacon of cooperation, has faded into history, replaced by suspicion and division. Canada's resources are now committed elsewhere, and the U.S. must confront a new reality, one where old assumptions no longer hold, and new strategies must be forged. This is a story of broken trust and strategic realignment. Decades of partnership have unraveled in a matter of months, leaving both nations to navigate an uncertain future. The fallout will touch everything from bread prices in Ohio to auto jobs in Michigan. Everyday Americans and Canadians alike are feeling the sting of this rift. As the cost of living rises and opportunities dwindle, we are in uncharted territory, and the consequences are only beginning to unfold. Economists warn of a prolonged downturn, while workers and business owners brace for more shocks ahead. The world is watching as a continental rift becomes a global warning, a stark reminder that even the strongest alliances can falter, and that the choices made today will shape the world for generations to come. To truly grasp the scale of the current crisis, we need to look back at the long, intertwined history of the US and Canada, a relationship built on trust, cooperation, and mutual benefit. Over decades, the US and Canada constructed one of the world's most deeply integrated economies, with the border acting more as a vital artery than a dividing line. Landmark trade agreements like the Auto Pact, Free Trade Agreement, and NAFTA didn't just open markets, they wove together industries, communities, and livelihoods on both sides of the border, creating a seamless flow of goods, jobs, and investment that shaped the continent. Ontario's factories supplied Detroit's auto industry, while Canadian energy powered American homes and businesses. This cross-border synergy fueled growth and innovation, making both nations stronger together than apart. Every single day, more than $2 billion in goods crossed the border, supporting millions of jobs and making Canada the #1 export market for over 30 U.S. states. The sheer volume and reliability of this trade became the backbone of North American prosperity. This was more than just trade. It was a continental ecosystem built on predictability, reliability, and a shared vision for economic success. The border functioned as a seam, stitching two nations together, not as a barrier keeping them apart. Businesses invested billions, confident that goods, services, and ideas would flow freely and efficiently, fueling expansion and innovation on both sides. For decades, disruption to this system was almost unthinkable. The idea that the flow could stop seemed impossible, because the damage would be immediate and immense. But now, that bedrock assumption has been shattered. The once reliable border is no longer a guarantee. The machinery of this shared economy is seizing up, with factories and supply chains grinding to a halt. Supply chains are breaking down, warehouses are running empty, and the legacy of decades of prosperity is suddenly at risk. The trust and certainty that underpinned this entire system have evaporated, leaving businesses and workers in limbo. North America's economic engine, once the envy of the world, is now grinding to a halt, threatening the future that generations worked so hard to build. This break didn't happen overnight. The unraveling of a partnership built over decades was a slow, painful process, marked by a series of events that chipped away at the foundation of trust. Trust began to erode during the Trump administration, with sudden tariffs slapped on Canadian steel and aluminum, a move that deeply insulted America's closest ally and sent shockwaves through both economies. For many Canadians, it was a wake-up call that the old assumptions about friendship and cooperation could no longer be taken for granted. The idea that Canada could be a security threat was absurd to Ottawa, and it shattered the old rules of engagement. Politicians and citizens alike were stunned, questioning how such a narrative could even take hold. Public insults and threats to tear up NAFTA created constant uncertainty. Every headline seemed to bring new anxieties, as the very framework of North American trade was thrown into doubt. Canadian businesses, once secure, now faced a volatile partner. Factories hesitated to invest, and workers worried about their jobs as the future of cross-border trade became increasingly unpredictable. The bruising USMCA negotiations only reinforced the need for Canada to diversify. The process was long and contentious, leaving scars on both sides and a lingering sense of vulnerability in Ottawa. China's vast market became an attractive alternative. Canadian exporters, eager for stability, began to look east, seeing new opportunities in Asia's growing demand for resources and technology. Prime Minister Carney's government saw an opportunity to rebalance Canada's future. Advisors urged bold action, arguing that relying on a single partner was simply too risky in a changing world. Continued trade skirmishes made clear the U.S. was no longer a reliable partner. Delays at the border and new disputes only deepened the sense of urgency. Ottawa decided the risk of staying tethered to America outweighed the risks of pivoting to China. The government weighed its options, ultimately concluding that diversification was essential for long-term security. The landmark deal with Beijing was a calculated move, born of frustration and necessity. It marked a turning point, signaling to the world that Canada was ready to chart its own course. Canada chose a new path, seeking stability and security elsewhere. The decision was bold, but for many, it was the only way forward in an uncertain global landscape. The Canada-China Trade Pact is revolutionary. It slashes tariffs and makes Canada China's preferred supplier for wheat, canola, soybeans, and pork. Canadian farmers now have guaranteed access to a market of 1.4 billion people. The deal also gives Canada a key role in China's green tech and EV industries, with joint ventures and Chinese investment in Canadian battery and assembly plants. Infrastructure upgrades, ports, railways, are funded by China, reorienting Canada's trade toward the Pacific. Chinese state-owned enterprises gain streamlined access to invest in non-strategic Canadian sectors. The agreement locks in these terms for over a decade, with steep penalties for withdrawal. Canadian resources are now contractually committed to China. Prime Minister Carney's refusal to Trump wasn't just political, it was a legal obligation. The wheat is already sold, the supply chains rerouted. Canada's handshake with China has changed everything. The U.S. is left out in the cold. The Canada-China deal has stunned Washington. The assumption that Canada had no alternative is gone. Panic is spreading through U.S. industries. Agriculture faces shortages, and the auto sector fears losing access to Canadian minerals and parts. The EV transition, once reliant on Canadian resources, is now in jeopardy. American automakers face delays, higher costs, and the risk of ceding leadership to foreign competitors. The deal is seen as a geopolitical win for China and a blow to U.S. influence. Lawmakers are divided. Some call for tariffs, others warn of self-inflicted harm. There's no clear strategy. The U.S. was caught flat-footed. Trump's plea for wheat exposed America's vulnerability and humiliation. Carney's refusal made it clear. The old relationship is over. Contracts are signed, ships are sailing east, and the U.S. must face the consequences. The shockwave is just beginning. American leaders are scrambling for answers. The crisis is real, and there's no easy fix. What does a frozen supply chain mean? Imagine a machine where one critical gear stops, everything else grinds to a halt. North America's supply chain was once world-class. Canadian wheat became American bread. Canadian aluminum became Michigan auto parts. Now, with Canada's resources rerouted to China, American businesses scramble for new suppliers, often at higher costs and lower quality. Truckers, mill workers, and manufacturers lose jobs as the system unravels. Shortages and price hikes ripple through the economy. The loss of predictability is devastating. Businesses hesitate to invest, unsure if they'll get the materials they need. Factories slow or stop, layoffs spread, and inflation rises. The paralysis isn't just physical, it's it's psychological. Uncertainty breeds inaction, and inaction leads to decline. The once reliable North American machine is seizing up. Economic growth and innovation stall. The consequences are immediate and severe. The gears of prosperity have stopped turning. In global trade, trust is more valuable than tariffs or quotas. The US-Canada relationship was once the gold standard. Businesses planned years ahead, confident in stability. That trust was shattered by unpredictable US actions, like national security tariffs. Canada saw its largest partner as unreliable and sought certainty elsewhere. The Canada-China deal is about predictability, multi-year contracts, locked-in prices, and guaranteed markets. Canada traded goodwill for a guaranteed deal. The lesson: reliability is the ultimate currency in global trade. Nations will choose partners who honor commitments, even if it means breaking old alliances. The US is learning this the hard way. Rebuilding trust will be far harder than renegotiating tariffs. This isn't just a story for politicians, it's about real people. Grocery prices rise as Canadian wheat disappears from US shelves. Lumber costs soar, making homes and renovations more expensive. Jobs are lost across the supply chain. Factory workers, truckers, logistics coordinators, and dock workers all feel the pain. Factories cut shifts, layoffs ripple through communities, and economic anxiety grows. In Canada, farmers celebrate new markets, but manufacturers tied to the US worry about their future. There's growing concern about dependence on China and the risks it brings. Uncertainty makes people cautious. They spend less, save more, and delay big purchases. This slows the entire economy. The stability people once took for granted is gone. The human cost of a broken trade relationship is real and immediate. It's about the financial well-being of families on both sides of the border. This is more than a neighborly dispute. It's a sign of a new, volatile era in global trade. The old order, built on American leadership and open markets, is fracturing. Nations now prioritize resilience and autonomy over pure efficiency. The Canada-China deal is part of a global trend: shorter, more resilient supply chains, and a move away from US dominance. Trust in American leadership is fading, and China is stepping in with long-term deals. The world is becoming more fragmented and competitive. Countries are forced to choose sides based on economics, not just politics. The US must adapt to this new reality. Jobs and prices are at stake. The future demands adaptability and a clear-eyed view of a changed world. The tremors from this rift will be felt for years to come.